Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Wiedefeld, and I'm the chairman of the Maryland Transportation Authority Board. Hereby call the meeting of the MDTA Board to order at 9 a.m. This morning, we're having our meeting in person at MDTA headquarters, and in accordance with the live streaming law, this meeting is being live streamed on MDTA Board webpage. Welcome to members and staff who are with us today. And on the phone, we have member Carroll and member Rosen as well. As a reminder, I ask everyone who's in the room with us this morning to refrain from speaking unless you are presenting or answering a question to avoid background noise on the live stream. I would also like to ask the members to speak loudly and clearly so those in the back of the room are able to hear you. Also, please say your name when motioning or seconding to help with the meeting minutes. There are no members in the public, no elected officials, and no media who have pre-registered to comment at this morning's meeting. For those who are watching this meeting via the live stream, we have posted the materials for today's meeting on the MDTA webpage, so you can follow along if you would like. We'll now begin with today's agenda. First agenda item is approval of the open session meeting minutes of December 21st. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second, Member Gaines.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Aye. Thank you. The second agenda item is the closed session meeting minutes of December 21st, 23 for approval.
This is Mario, so moved.
Is there a second?
This is Member Von Paris, I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Third agenda item is, thank you. The third agenda item is the open session meeting minutes of January 11th, 2024 for approval. Is there a motion?
So moved, Member Gaines.
Second, Mario.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 4 is the approval of closed session meeting minutes of January 11th, 2024. Is there a motion?
Member Cox.
Mr. Cox, second.
Member Artinger, I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Aye. Thank you. Fifth agenda item is a resolution, years of service recognition. Percy?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll pull this up in a second. Okay. All right, thank you, Chairman, members of the board. For the record, I'm Acting Executive Director Percy Dangerfield, and I want to acknowledge retirement for MDTA Senior Officer Christopher Hazy. Whereas MDTA Police Senior Officer Christopher Hazy began his career with Maryland Transportation Authority as an MDTA Police Officer 1 on December 8th, 1993. And whereas Senior Officer Heisey continued to progress in the law enforcement field and was promoted to MDTA Police Officer 2 on December 8th, 1994, and to MDTA Police Senior Officer on March 7th, 2012, a position held until retirement. Whereas he is a valuable member, he's an invaluable member of the team, and his co-workers expressed the facts that his dedication to teamwork will be missed. Having a little technical difficulties. All right, thank you, team, for helping me get it together. Okay, so therefore, be it resolved on the occasion of Senior Officer Christopher Heisey retirement from his distinguished career of exemplary service, the chairman and members of the Maryland Transportation Authority Board hereby express to Senior Officer Heisey their most sincere appreciation for his excellence and commitment, and be it further resolved that his resolution be entered into the minutes of the MDTA Board meeting of January 25th, 2024, and a copy appropriately framed be presented to Senior Officer Heisey as an expression of the MDTA Board's appreciation and esteem.
Yeah, he's going to come on up. He's up here.
Come on up. Don't be shy now.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 6 is approval of contract award for janitorial services at Francis Scott Key Bridge. For Jeffrey Davis, Mr. Davis?
Morning.
Morning.
Members of the board, for the record, my name is Jeff Davis with the Division of Procurement here at the MDTA, and I am here to present contract number MT00210896 for janitorial services at the Francis Scott Key Memorial Bridge facilities. We are looking to execute this contract. We're looking for. Okay. My bad. I'll start over briefly for those listening at home. My purpose today is to seek approval to execute contract number MT00210896, janitorial services for the Francis Scott Key Memorial Bridge. This contract provides comprehensive janitorial services, including supervision, supplies, labor, and equipment at the FSK Memorial Bridge facilities. This contract will be performed by community service provider Alliance Incorporated. The Pricing and Selection Committee approved the rates for these services on December 21st, 2023. I should clarify that was the Maryland Works Pricing and Selection Committee. Janitorial supplies are included in this contract and will also be purchased from a community provider, which is Blind Industries of Maryland. This contract exceeds the delegated procurement authority of the MDTA and therefore will be presented at the Board of Public Works on February 14th, 2024. So I ask the members to approve this award to Alliance Incorporated for a base contract of $1,213,252.71 with a 2-year renewal option of $855,343.63 for a total 5-year contract of $2,068,596.34. As this is a Maryland Works community provider contract, there is no MBE goal on this contract, so the attainment would be 0%, no goal possible due to a single element of work.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Davis? Do they currently have the contract?
I'm sorry?
Do they currently have the
Yes,
contract?
they are currently the vendor at this facility.
I'm assuming they've been performing very well?
Yes.
Very good. Great. Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Member Gaines.
A second?
Second, Member Von Paris.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen. So approved. Thank you. Agenda item number 7 is a board resolution 24-01, toll revenue bonds refinancing. Mr. Gardner?
Thank you.
Good morning.
We're back to request approval, and this is again delegated authority to undertake a refinancing of outstanding debt. We had received approval in December to refinance the outstanding Build America bonds. We're seeking expanded approval to increase the authorized par to refinance 3 other potentially series of bonds for economic savings. I'd like to, draw some distinctions and talk a little bit about the Build America bonds again. We added some clarifying language in the resolution specific to the Build America bonds to suggest that we would accept modest savings, although our goal is risk reduction because of the federal subsidy uncertainty. We're willing to accept potentially some savings in exchange for reducing that federal subsidy risk. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit more in detail. What we did in the resolution is that purely from a cash flow perspective, our goal is to reduce debt service costs. However, we also have the subsidy risk, and so we're trying to eliminate the variability of that subsidy. And there's a table at the very end, and I think that may be the easiest way to explain it and help visualize it in terms of the goals here. If you look at the table at the end of your presentation, the far left column is the debt service essentially for the Build America bonds that we have outstanding through the final maturity in 2043. And so that's totals $1.184 billion. The next column that's shown in red in their negative numbers are projected federal subsidies coming in. So back in 2009 and 10, there was a special program to issue Build America bonds, which were unique in the market. They were taxable bonds. The federal government committed to covering 35% of the coupon payments. And so that's what that column is showing. However, with the automatic spending cuts that were enacted in 2013, the federal government began reducing those subsidies, and they've been reduced every year since 2013. And those subsidy cuts have resulted in us receiving about $10 million less than we expected since 2013. And importantly, in this column, the $152 million expectation is we're modeling a continued cut in that through 2043. The last 3 years, the cut's been 5.7%. It's been as high as 8.7% in 2013. We think it's reasonable to assume or project that that spending cut will continue, although we don't know if it could get worse, if they could entirely cut the subsidies. And so that's one of the goals. But what's unusual about this resolution is that normally we have a fixed coupon. We know exactly what the debt service is of the existing bonds, and then we issue new bonds. We know exactly what the debt service of those bonds are. In this case, we don't know exactly what the debt service will be. We know what the coupon is. We don't know what the net debt service will be. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on the modeling of that debt service. So in the very middle column, you'll see that the sum of the $1.184 billion and the expected subsidies of $152 million are $1.008 billion. The expected refunding debt service has improved quite a bit since the meeting in December. We were projecting slight savings of $2 million through maturity. That's turned into slight positive savings of $9.6 million through maturity. And you can see that in the third to the right column. On a present value basis, that totals about $6.8 million, and that's in the very far right column. There's one other element that we discussed at the last meeting, and I wanted to discuss again, is that we are taking out bonds that have a make-whole call provision. So that make-whole is termed from the investor's perspective, and that typically means that they are made whole. So as interest rates fall, our call price rises so that the investor is made whole and they don't have to reinvest their money at lower interest rates. So there's this particularly favorable and Goldilocks scenario right now where Treasury rates have risen, which has reduced our call price, which is good for us. And however, normally you would have, significantly rising municipal rates, so we would have to refinance at higher rates, which is generally not good. But what's happened is that municipal rates have risen along with treasuries, but a much less so. And so the 10-year municipal bond yield since 2000 has averaged about 89% of the treasury yield. It's currently around 60%, and that's really what's driving the economics, is that the higher treasury rates mean that we can call these bonds at a lower price, and then the municipal rates that have not risen as much as treasury rates means that we can generate some positive savings. The other, beneficial element in reissuing tax-exempt bonds with a par call option is that in 10 years, for example, our final maturity, the 2043 maturity, will be approximately a 10-year bond, and what we're modeling is issuing 5% coupon bonds, and prevailing 10-year tax-exempt muni rates are around 2.7%. So even if interest rates rise significantly from here, there'll be potentially savings in refinancing the tax-exempt bonds in 10 years. So to reiterate, we've got approximately $9 million of nominal savings to maturity, and there's a potential to have even further improvement in that because of this refinancing, which is a restructuring. But we just wanted to make sure there's a clear distinction between what we're doing from a financial perspective and what you're authorizing in the resolution. What you're authorizing in the resolution is potentially accepting some savings to remove that federal subsidy risk, although currently we're modeling slight positive savings. And I think Deb is sitting here next to me because I think she would like to interject, perhaps. Do you have anything to say?
Just a little bit. This really is a risk mitigation strategy. We have been watching the BABs for at least 5-6 years, trying to find the opportunity to get out of them. And it's been a waiting game. And we feel like that opportunity is here to reduce the risk. So your decision regarding this resolution should not be about the potential refunding savings when these bonds are replaced with tax exempt. Very, very often, tax exempt bonds are refunded. But your decision today should be about mitigating the risk associated with the BAB subsidy. And just know that the type of bonds that we would be replacing these with are the traditional tax exempt 10-year calls, the bread and butter type of bonds that we always issue. It will be those types of bonds that we would be replacing these with. And so because of mitigating risk, the most important factor is, just as the market has changed, and when Alan presented the original BAB resolution, we had slight savings. Well, now we have slight positive savings. It can sway back and we have slight savings again. And this resolution is authorizing staff to still execute this refunding. Okay?
And so,
Let's pause here for a second and see if there's any questions about the BABS portion. And then Alan can start to talk about the tender piece that we've added into this resolution, which is new from the last resolution. And we'll explain the reasons why we want the authority to have a tender offer.
Any questions? Mr. Von Paris, Member Von Paris, as Chair of the Finance Committee. Some comments?
Well, I certainly, other members also can add their input. I agree with this approach, especially as we go forward. We're trying to project our cost, and we have more certainty involved in that and how that relates to revenue needs sometime down the road. I think that's very good. The other benefits, as you outlined, the potential $9 million plus that we can save with interest over a period of time. But I think the main thing, as you mentioned, Deb, is the risk side, to clear that up so we have more accurate information. Unknowns are difficult to predict with this, and I think, it comes an unknown situation. So I think that this is, there was concurrence at the Finance Committee meeting, and I think our advisors also in the our committees in finance are also in support of this. But so I think it's sometimes it's very complex, but you both do a very good job of explaining it to others that are not familiar with it. So thank you for that.
Good. Member Carol Rosen, any comments, since you sit on the Finance Committee as well?
No comments.
Okay, thank you.
No, my end either. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Okay, very good.
So now Alan will talk about the new part of the resolution involving a tender offer.
okay, so the original resolution was for $770 million, and we've increased that to $1.07 billion. The rationale is that we have bonds outstanding from 2017, 20, and 21 that are not currently callable, but the agency always has the opportunity and ability to buy the bonds in the secondary market or make an offer to buy the bonds, and that's referred to as a tender process. And so, in particular to some of these maturities, they were issued in a lower rate environment with lower coupons, and so as interest rates rose, they began trading at a discount to par, And so in particular, some of these discount structured bonds are attractive to purchase and refinance for economic savings. So in the resolution, we have a minimum savings of $1 million for these tender candidates. There are about 300 million of candidates that look attractive from a refinancing perspective. When you go out for a tender offer, many holders of those bonds will not be willing to sell, and so the expectation is that we'll perhaps get as much as 25% of the targeted 300 million. So maybe 75 million, maybe less. We would not normally do a tender if we weren't also doing another financing. And the reason is that there's costs involved with developing an official statement, the legal costs, credit ratings. There's some economies of scale for us, given how small this tender component could be. We essentially are not incurring any additional costs to lump that in with this larger BABS refinancing. And so that's why we would be doing it now, even though we recognize there's been some opportunity in the market, when rates rose and some of these bonds started trading at a discount. There's a particular odd element within federal tax law that generates some of this opportunity for us, and it's a market discount rule. And so investors typically buy these tax-exempt bonds and don't pay any interest on that income. Any tax on the income. But as interest rates rise, the bonds start to trade at a discount to the face value. And if a new investor buys that bond after it's sold, that essentially accretion from the discount to par would be taxable. And so the bond price has to adjust downward even farther to make that new investor whole, essentially on an after-tax basis. And so if we have the ability to go out and buy the bonds at sort of this depressed price, that's what creates the opportunity for potential refinancing savings for us. So we've upsized the resolution for $1 billion, though we think the total financing might be closer to 700 or 800 million, because we don't think we'll get a lot of those bonds coming back in tender. There's a list of limiting provisions in the resolution, and I'll just highlight those, I think, in conclusion. As with all of our resolutions, there's a limit on the upsize, and so that's the $1.07 billion. Again, with the tender candidates, they must generate at least $1 million in aggregate, and so each individual bond that we'd be targeting would also have some savings, but in total they would have to generate $1 million to move forward. The Build America bonds could be refinanced, on a more or less break-even or slight savings basis. This transaction would have to occur by the end of December, though we're really targeting a February sale. And as we talked about back in December, there's a supply-demand advantage for us in February, where there's a lot of demand for muni bonds and there's not a lot of new issuance because of the higher rates. And so that gives us potentially a lot more attractive financing terms, and that's why we're trying to get the financing done, around February, March timeframe.
So the only piece that I want to make sure that we're clear on also is when we talk about the savings on the BABS, we've modeled some savings to make sure from a financial debt service coverage perspective, we can manage any savings, and we can. And so, when we talk about materiality, right, that's always relative to your base. So in one situation, even $1 million. In one situation, $1 million is a lot of money. But if we were talking about billions and billions of dollars, 1 million isn't as material. So I think that the savings piece, right, it will have to do with materiality as percentages and not, we just have to be really careful that, we're clear that, if the authority is giving us the permission to move forward with the savings, when staff believes that if there is a savings, that amount of that savings it's better to take that in relation to the risk we're mitigating, because I wouldn't want there to be unclearness in it, and we come back and one person had, a certain dollar amount in their mind for what is, slightly negative.
Yeah, what we had modeled in December was savings of about $100,000 a year. And so that's not enough to move debt service coverage for the agency when we have over $100 million of debt service a year. The positive savings that we're modeling now is about $500,000 a year. Again, it's not material enough to improve debt service coverage. That's what we're characterizing as near break even, is that it's not enough to move the needle in terms of debt service coverage.
Right, it's a great point, Alan. So even when we're talking about our savings, right, $500,000, that doesn't move the needle for us from a debt service coverage perspective. So I think it's important just to make sure that there's no misunderstanding when we come back if we are reporting a savings because the market shifted.
Great. All right, any other comments or questions from members? Yes.
I'm sorry, just as a reminder, when you guys are speaking, make sure you turn your microphones on for the live stream. If it's red at the top, it's off and we can't hear you.
This is on. Okay, very good, just making sure.
Others weren't.
That's all right, that's good, that's fine. Thank you for both your transparency on some of the, the implications, plus and minus, but obviously I think the staff's recommendation is solid. So with that, I'll look for a motion for approval of Board Resolution 2401.
This is Mary, I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Mario. Is there a second?
Member Ardinger, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Member Carol Rosen, thank you.
Quick follow-up.
Yes, of course.
Just, this was good, and I'm glad I'm not on the finance committee, because this stuff's way above my pay grade. But you explained it in a way that I think I understand it, and I appreciate that. I know you're gonna probably report back on this in a future meeting, and I think maybe we should emphasize that, hey, this is what we just talked about a few months ago, and this is what we're seeing, either the savings or savings, so that we see if we're on target, see if we made the.
Great. Thank you.
You gave great advice, so I feel good about our decision.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, agenda item number 8 is an update on legislative report submitted to the legislature. Marion James?
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Mary O'Keefe, Chief of Staff here at MDTA. And before James gets into updating the board on the report, I just wanted to give a little background on what a legislative report, the process here is at MDTA. Usually at the end of the legislature, we know if we have been signed a legislative report to submit back to the legislature in the form of joint chairman's report, as in this case. So it spans over several months, the process. Once we know the content that they're looking for and the due date. For MDTA, we've been fortunate, most of them have been due at the end of the year, the calendar year. Our government relations team serves as the coordination team. They are not the subject matter experts. A lot of these reports can be technical, but they start the process of bringing the subject matter experts together here at MDTA through different divisions. In this case, it was Office of Engineering, it was Finance, and he brings them together to start the drafting of the bill, drafting of the report. Goes through revisions, is responsible for document management, which when you have a lot of people reviewing report, tracking down answers. And so I just wanted to take a moment. This was James's first time doing it, and he did a wonderful job leading the coordination. So I wanted to turn it over to him for the opportunity to present the summary.
Thank you so much, Mary. All right, so good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Hope you all are doing well. For the record again, my name is James Kittleman, and I'm the Assistant Manager of Government Relations here at the MDTA. Today, I'll be providing a summary of the Joint Chairman's Report issued by the MDTA regarding tolling at the Francis Scott Key Bridge facility. The MDTA was required to provide a report to the General Assembly examining the issues of travelers accessing the Port of Baltimore via I-695 without crossing the Key Bridge to determine if tolls currently being assessed are appropriate. The report also requested the MDTA to include a map of the entire Key Bridge facility and all entry and exit points, including toll rates for each route. You can find the report along with the map in your board materials. The MDTA reassessed the toll rates at the Francis Scott Key facility when preparing this report. Besides the option to implement trip construction, all travelers are being assessed the appropriate tolls based on vehicle classifications and entry and exit points. Since the opening of the FSK facility in 1977, tolls have been collected for all vehicles traversing midpoint locations. The MDTA has been tolling the Bear Creek, Browning Highway only movement since the facility opened. The conversion to all electronic tolling, or AET, did not change the vehicle movements that are tolled, and the placement of the AET toll gantries at the FSK facility were installed to allow a consistent tolling practice and to meet bondholder expectations. The 10.9-mile-long FSK facility includes 3 tolling locations. These locations include I-695 northbound and I-695 southbound, north of the Key Bridge and Browning Highway Service Road adjacent to I-695. Certain vehicle movements that traverse the FSK facility do not incur a toll and have never incurred a toll. In the northbound direction, these vehicle movements include vehicles entering I-695 via exit 43 and vehicles exiting I-695 via exit 2 and exit 1. In the southbound direction, these vehicle movements include vehicles entering I-695 via exits 1 and exit 2 and vehicles exiting I-695 via exit 43. The primary concern conveyed by customers is the belief that a toll should not be charged when a customer does not traverse the Key Bridge. The best way to address this concern is continued education about the footprint of the entire FSK facility, trust agreement obligations, costs to maintain the facility, and discount programs available. The MDTA has and will continue to support efforts to educate the local community and businesses on its trust agreement obligations, costs to maintain the facility, and discount programs available. Before turning it over for questions, I do want to take the time again to thank our team here for all their hard work on this JCR. As Mary said, our legal, finance, OEC, and planning team all took part in this, in reviewing and providing their expertise, so I cannot thank them enough for all their help with this. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Yes. Mr.
Thanks for the update. I know since the opening, I have chaired the Transportation Committee at that point in Annapolis, and it's very big concern then and now. Truckers out of the port. And you explained it very, very well as far as the trust agreement and the access to and from the port facility, you know, for immigration. I mean, it's you know, I know it's discerning to a lot of people that are coming out of the port and are using the port, whether it's truck, just motor vehicle, but it's necessary. I'm glad that you explained to me this report. Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the members? I've just one, what's the latest status of the study that Baltimore County is doing on the interchange? I saw a little reference to it, but.
I can turn it over to Mary.
Mr. Chair, the study where they received the federal money, our Division of Planning, Melissa Williams has been tracking that and has offered any kind of assistance. It's SHA's lead, and so that's where it's.
But we're participating, I mean, at call, right? On call for that.
Right.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, sticking on the same theme, an update from our legislative session to date. Bradley? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. I'm Brad Ryan, Manager of Government Relations, and I'm here to present the board with an update on the 90-day 2024 session of the Maryland General Assembly, which convened January the 10th, so 2 weeks ago. James and I continue to monitor legislation, meet with legislators and staffers in Annapolis, and alert MDTA staff and TSO regarding legislation of interest. We also work with other modes and other state agencies to monitor any legislation that similarly impacts us. As of today, legislation that specifically and uniquely impacts the agency is limited, but more will definitely be forthcoming. As of now, Delegate Charkoudian has introduced House Bill 135. As written, this bill requires MDTA to create barrier-separated bicycle and pedestrian facilities on all roadways whenever there is a project to perform repairs or maintenance. No bill has been scheduled at this time, and we're working on looking into that bill with the team. In addition, MDTA staff will continue to review legislation that impacts the agency. Delegate Corman is the new chair of the House Environment and Transportation Committee, and Delegate Love remains the chair of the Motor Vehicle and Transportation Subcommittee. Senator Gazzoni remains the chair of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee, with Senator Elfreth remaining chair of the Subcommittee on Public Safety, Transportation, and Environment. These are the committees that we interact with the most. Of course, there's other committees of jurisdiction that we work with, but these are the primary ones. Yesterday, the Secretary and Melissa Williams, along with other MDOT officials, briefed the House Environment and Transportation Committee on MDOT major projects. The MDTA portion largely centered around Bay Bridge-related issues and was productive. We will present at the budget hearings on the MDTA budget before the House, February 22nd, and the Senate, February 23rd. And with that, I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions or comments from the members? Just one then. Ms. Williams did a fantastic job yesterday because they dug in pretty deeply on some issues around the bridge, and she did a very good job explaining the outline of the steps forward on that, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Agree 100%. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 10, Executive Director's Report. Mr. Dangerfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, my name is Percy Dangerfield. I'm the acting executive director for MDTA. First of all, I want to wish the board a happy new year, and hopefully it's off to a good start for everyone. So I have an update for the board amending COMAR for the Nice Middleton Bridge. During the May 25th, 2023 MDTA board meeting, the board approved action to amend a provision in COMAR for the new Nice Middleton Bridge. Changes were needed to COMAR to remove the existing restrictions for oversized vehicles applicable to the old bridge and to accommodate the movement of oversized or overweight vehicles on the new structure. It's important to note that the oversized and overweight vehicles are still required to utilize the Maryland 1 permitting system and comply with the permit conditions and restrictions, as well as existing state law and COMAR for special hauling permits. The Maryland 1 permitting system is a one-stop online resource for hauling permits in Maryland. The new COMAR regulations became effective on December 25th of 2023. Also earlier this month, on January the 3rd, the Bay Bridge Reconstruction Advisory Group, or BRAG for short, held its quarterly meeting. John Foster was welcomed as a new member to the BRAG. Mr. Foster was appointed by the governor in November to replace Barbara Hitchings, who served as a BRAG member from the beginning of the group back in 2005. Tracy Schultz was re-elected as chair, and Jack Broderick was elected to serve as vice chair. Jim Harkness, our MDTA's chief engineer, provided the BRAG a status update on 5 active projects at the Bay Bridge in the capital program, and he also gave a presentation on a dehumidification system installed on the bridge's suspension spans. Jim also shared some traffic volume information from 2023, stating that volumes were up by more than 3% compared to 2022. The crash rate or number of crashes for number of vehicles was lower. It was down compared to 2022 and even 2021. The greatest number of crashes occurred in August, and Wednesdays were the day of the week, with the fewest crashes, with Saturday and Sunday featuring the highest number of crashes. He stated that failure to give full attention and following too closely were the biggest crash causes. Also, as mentioned, I'm MDTA Director of Planning and Program Development. Mrs. Melissa Williams provided an update on the Bay Crossing Tier 2 NEPA study. She stated several things, such as existing and future traffic projections and analysis are ongoing and include looking at origin destination data. Environmental field studies have been ongoing and will continue through the winter of 2024. Coordination with state and federal resource agencies has been ongoing to discuss engineering and environmental technical studies and purpose and need. The September open house survey summary was posted to the baycrossingstudy.com, and the development of alternatives is ongoing, and it includes the evaluation of future maintenance needs for the existing bridges, the analysis of potential new crossing structure types, including bridge, tunnel, and hybrid bridge tunnel concepts, an evaluation of various bay crossing and US 5301 lane widening combinations, noting that the lane combinations will not exceed 10 lanes, evaluating feasibility of a pedestrian and bicycle shared use path as part of a new bay crossing, and an evaluation of transit and other modes in combination with the bay crossing and US 5301 lane combination studies. Alternatives will be shown at the next series of public meetings to be held in fall of 2024. Also, the Federal Highway Office of Project Development and Environmental Review has been developing case studies on best practices for virtual public involvement in the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. So we were fortunate. So in spring of 2022, FHA, Office of Project Development and Environmental Review, interviewed the MDTA and other state transportation agencies for the purposes of developing these case studies on virtual public involvement in NEPA, specifically virtual and hybrid public hearings. So from the interview, a case study was developed on MDTA's virtual public involvement practices during NEPA, particularly focusing on the Chesapeake Bay Crossing study. FHWA has planned for 2 webinars on these best practices. Heather Lowe and Melissa Bogdan were invited to present on behalf of the MDTA's Division of Planning and Program Development in these webinars. Just another example of MDTA employees being benchmarks for the industry, so we're really happy about that. One was held on January 17th, 2024 for Federal Highway Administration's internal staff, and on February 27th, 2024, the second webinar will be held for the public. Now, as the board is familiar, we've had some weather in January that's impacted the traveling public. We had a severe rain and windstorm on January 9th, and most recently 2 snow events. I'd like to express my gratitude for a job well done to all MDTA staff involved in keeping our roads safe for our customers. Due to their dedication, attentiveness, and professionalism, MDTA provided outstanding customer service to our Lowell Park patrons. The January 9th windstorm had rain totals exceeding 3 inches and wind speeds of 60+ miles per hour sustained and 80+ miles per hour wind gusts. So at the Bay Bridge and the Nice Middleton Bridge, traffic was temporarily held due to the declaration of our Phase 4 wind warnings. Also on January 12th was an exciting day for us here at MDTA, as most of the board members had a chance to attend. We received an $80 million federal grant for our Baltimore Harbor Tunnel Improvements Project. We were honored to have U.S. Senators Ben Cardin and Chris Van Hollen, Governor Wes Moore, and our Secretary Wiedefield announced this funding at the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel with the board in attendance. The $80 million in federal funding will support the I-895 at Frankfurt Avenue Interchange Improvement Project. This $160 million project will enhance safety and reliability, decrease emissions, streamline traffic flows, and foster economic growth by overhauling a critical juncture in the Baltimore's area's interstate system. The project scope includes removal of the toll plaza near the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel, replacement of 2 bridges, the enhancement of railroad safety measures at the Shell Road at-grade CXX crossing, and a redesign of Frankfurt Avenue to safely accommodate freight vehicles. So before I move on to highlight some employee recognitions, I'd like to mention one last item from 2023. Earlier this month, we received the final report on our 2023 MCC or Maryland Charities Campaign efforts. I'm pleased to announce thanks for the generosity of many of our employees for the 2023 MCC campaign. MDTA as an agency raised $23,326. We beat our 2023 goal of $19,893. I want to give special thanks to everybody who contributed to MCC campaign this year, but I would also be remiss I'm going to probably embarrass them a little bit, but our very own Natalie Henson took the lead on our MCC efforts. She was assisted by Selena, and of course through the leadership of Mary. So I really want to tell them publicly and appreciate your efforts. So thank you very much. They do an incredible job every year with helping MDTA raise money for those in need. I have 3 employee recognitions for this month's meeting. The first of which is our own Mr. Jamal Turner, who received the Maryland Public Purchasing Association's Manager of the Year Award. Now, the MPPA officers and board of directors grants this award to public procurement professionals who have supervisory or management responsibilities. Public procurement manager functions must include responsibilities of overall procurement material management activities in a specific governmental entity, to include the supervision of procurement professional and or the display of executive abilities involving economic, financial, technical, statistical, legal, and administrative attributes. Management positions may be totally dedicated to the procurement function or shared with our responsibilities. I don't see Jamal here, but I do want to publicly acknowledge his accomplishment. That is an extremely important award. And again, it goes to show the dedication of our MDTA employees and being benchmarks in their profession. I'm also pleased to inform the board that Maryland Public Purchasing Association presented Ms. Donna DeCerbo, MDTA's Director of Procurement, with the Harry H. Bain Distinguished Service Award. This high honor recognizes extraordinary dedication and service to the public procurement profession. Donna's not here. Jeff did stand in for her today, but I want to recognize Donna's achievement in the procurement profession. The Harry H. Bain Distinguished Service Award is an extremely high honor that not many procurement professionals have an opportunity to reach in their careers. So we're extremely proud of Donna for her accomplishment. So lastly, the final recognition is for Employee of the Quarter. So the Employee of the Quarter for the final quarter of 2023 is an employee with more than 25 years of service. This individual the individual who nominated this employee described had this to say about the employee. Quote, "It is rare to find an employee with over 25 years of service that views each new relationship, interaction, assignment, and even challenge as an opportunity to advance their own skill and invest in the development of others around them." This employee was recognized as quick to offer assistance with the LIFT program, train new colleagues or supervisors, problem solve, and any technical issues in Cornerstone, or provide exceptional service to employees seeking more information about MDTA's career development program. This employee is viewed as a brand ambassador for MDTA. Her experience, knowledge, connections, and relatability during the new employee orientation make her an invaluable asset to this organization. As a good listener and decision maker, this employee is able to provide support while at the same time allowing others to shine around her. She treats her colleagues and customers with dignity and respect, in turn making them feel valued and cared for, particularly in times of change. As MDTA places an emphasis on hiring and retention, there is no better representative that demonstrates the understanding and application of teamwork and service. The Employee of the Quarter for the fourth quarter of 2023 is none other than our own Ms. Jarrell Reynolds, who's a valued member who is a valued member of the Human Resources and Workforce Development. Jarrell was nominated by Mark Rappel, which is MDTA's Learning and Development Specialist. Now, on a personal note, before I invite Jarrell up to receive her recognition, I just want to let the board know that I've known Jarrell since I've been here at MDTA for the past 10 years. And I know Jarrell has been trying to grow as a professional and experience the benefits of MDTA. She's never gave up on the organization. And I'm extremely pleased to see the organization recognizing her commitment and her dedication. Jarrell embodies who we are as an organization, and I'm very happy for her. So I'd like to congratulate Jarrell on receiving this recognition and invite her up for a photo op with the board. I know you're supposed to take a picture with me, but it's fine. Got some other folks I want to introduce you to. Again, good job, Jarrell. Keep up the great work. So for those who were also nominated for Employee of the Quarter last year, each will receive a certificate recognizing that they were nominated and their names will be placed in connections. So before I conclude my remarks, I would like to note that this will be my last board meeting in the role of acting executive director. And I want to personally thank Chairman Wiedefield and the board for entrusting me with leading this organization during a very, very difficult time. But it was your confidence and your support that gave me the foundation to ensure that MDTA continued to thrive these past few months. I also want to acknowledge the brave, resilient, dedicated professionals here at MDTA. The level of support that I received from each employee was immeasurable, it was incredible. And I was honored to be a member of the MDTA family. So collectively, we continue to connect our customers to life's opportunities, and I want to take this time to thank the workforce, thank the employees for that support. And finally, I also want to welcome Executive Director Bruce Gardner. Like me, Bruce has served the public for many years, and he's a well-respected transportation professional that will continue to lead the organization into the future. Now, this will actually be Bruce's third time being part of the organization. But, once you're a part of the MDTA family, you can leave MDTA, but MDTA will never leave you. So we look forward to welcoming Bruce and supporting him in his leadership role. And the MDTA is fortunate to have his experience, his leadership, and his commitment to public transportation. Thank you, and this concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just what Ms. Jarrell just showed us is the passion that people bring to the job, and that's obviously what you brought to the job when we asked you to step up. So I appreciate that so much. I know the board does as well. So just thank you so much, and I know you'll continue to succeed both here and in other places within the department. And I look forward to working with you on that as well. Thank you. So with that, we've now reached the closed session portion of the agenda. This closed session is scheduled for the board members and designated staff only. For those persons in the room and on live stream, as soon as we have completed the closed session, we will come back to this room to ratify any action that might be taken in closed session and to continue with the remainder of the agenda in open session. We appreciate your patience. Per the Maryland Open Meetings Act, and the MDTA Board will meet in closed session under General Provisions, Articles Section 3-305B10 and 12 to receive an update on the deployment of police staff and resources and other security measures, to discuss a pending investigative proceedings involving possible criminal conduct, and Sections 3-305B8 to receive a status update on all litigation currently pending against the MDTA. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Member Cox.
Mr. Cox. A second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor to go into closed session?
Aye.
Thank you, Member Carol Rosen. Thank you. The time now is 9:54. Good morning again. The time now is 10:36 a.m. The board has completed its closed session. There were no actions taken in closed session that require ratification. At this point, the agenda is complete. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved, Chairman.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes the meeting. Thank you. Concludes the meeting of the MDTA Board at 10:36. Thank you, Member Carroll and Rosen, for joining us.
It's funny having delays.
Thank you, guys.